This week I will be introducing you to two-point perspective. What you will need for this lesson is a pencil, eraser, some paper, and some sort of straight edge. If you don't have a ruler, that's okay. Anything with a straight edge will work, like this little notebook, that's going to work just as well as a ruler because we're not measuring, we're just using the straight edge like I said. First thing, we're doing two-point perspective, so you need 2 points. These are called vanishing points, and it's the point in the distance where things are going to recede to. That'll make sense in a moment. What I'm showing you here is how to measure where the vanishing points are if you don't have a ruler. So I just pinched it to make them even on both sides. And you want your vanishing points to be close to the sides of the paper and about at the same distance from the bottom on each side. I made them X's so you can see them, but you can just leave points, that's fine too. And then after you have your vanishing points, we always start with a vertical line. This is going to become the corner of my cube shape. And then from the vertical line, I connect to the vanishing points on the top and the bottom on both sides. So that's going to be 4 lines connecting the left and the right to the vanishing points. And if that doesn't make sense, watch the next side. And here it starts to look a little three-dimensional, like a corner is popping out at you. And the next thing I'm doing is making my ruler or straight edge parallel to that first line I drew, and I'm making the back edge of my cube on either side. So now I'm going to move to the other side, and here's a different straight edge you could use. Parallel, decide how far back it goes, and then draw your back edge of your cube. Since the cube I'm drawing is above the vanishing points, you can see the bottom, and you can kind of tell based on which part looks like it's missing. So now I switch vanishing points, so I connect the right side to the left vanishing point and the left corner to the right vanishing point. And you can see for the last one I could tell where I needed to stop because I ran into my line. So I'm going to erase all the extra lines I don't need, and here's my cube. Now based on where you put your first line, it's going to determine what other part of the cube you can see. Like the first one I drew, you can see the bottom because it's above the vanishing points. Now I'm below the vanishing points. So take a guess, what do you think you're going to be able to see for this one? I think you'll be able to tell in just a moment. But the first steps are the same, vertical line and connecting to the vanishing point from the top and bottom on either side. And now I'm making the back edge of my cube, so parallel, scoot back, make that back edge, parallel, scoot back, make the back edge. And now you can see that it looks like there's a big gap in the top, and this is what I was talking about a moment ago when I said based on where you put that first line, it's going to determine which edge you can see. And I'm showing you here, the reason we don't do it for the bottom is because the walls of the cube are blocking it, and you can't actually see the bottom edge unless it's a glass cube or something that's see-through. So connecting the top to the opposite vanishing point now, so from the left side to the right vanishing point and vice versa, erasing extra lines, and now I'm showing you the third option. If you put your first vertical line across, I'm trying to show you with the other ruler, across where the vanishing point would kind of connect to the other vanishing point, you're going to see what that looks like next. So here I'm going to have a little bit of overlapping. So when I run into that first cube, I'm going to stop drawing because this cube is going to look like it's behind. And then following all the same rules as before, so from the top and bottom of each side, I connect to the vanishing points. And I'm making a little less work for myself by not drawing the line all the way over there. And then parallel, making my front and back. And here you could see with that cube I just drew, you can't see the top or bottom because it is sitting in the middle of the paper right between the vanishing points. So that's the reason you can't see the top or bottom. I'm really zipping through the steps I just explained for the next couple of cubes, but I want to talk about the requirements for your project this week. The first of those is going to be making 5 cubes, at least 5, with this two-point perspective method. So we're really practicing this new skill. So make 5 cubes first, and then this next step I'm showing you is also going to be a requirement, so pay attention. We're making a window. So the first thing I made was 2 vertical lines that are parallel to that first one we drew, and now I'm making the top and bottom of the window, so I use the vanishing point to make it look like it's going into the distance. And then just erase any extra lines. Now I have a little window, and to make it look a bit more three-dimensional, I'm going to add some thickness to the wall of that window. So you have to use your imagination a little bit to figure out which walls can you actually see, because you can't see all of them. And typically it's going to be the wall closest to the vanishing point is the one you can see, and then maybe the top or bottom. It just depends on where it's at. So you have to look at it with a critical eye to figure out which walls you can actually see inside the window. Okay, and over here, I'm putting a window on the top. So this time, none of my lines are going to be vertical because it's on the top of my box. And if you're having a hard time figuring out if you should connect to the vanishing point or if you should make a vertical line, look at the walls of the cube around it. All of the walls of the window are parallel to the walls of the cube. And now I'm deciding which parts of the walls I can see inside the cube, and then connecting to the vanishing point to make it look a little bit three-dimensional. So here I'm really zipping along, but this is the next requirement for your project, is to learn how to make it look like there's windows or maybe doors on your cubes. And I'm zooming in so you can really see what I'm doing with the corners, just connecting and then erasing the extra lines to make it look three-dimensional. And if you need a little help figuring out which walls of your windows you can actually see, we'll talk about it in Zoom class. An optional step, if you're feeling up to a challenge, is including some cylinders in your composition. So what I did first was make a circle, or you could make an oval, and then connect to the vanishing point of whichever side it's going to. And then for the back, you make a parallel curve. So you try to make the same curve as you have in the front in the back to make it look like a cylinder. Then erasing extra lines, and I put a window on here too. The circles, I just freehanded all of mine, so they're not perfect, but I'm okay with that. If you would like to find things to trace, that's also an option to make your circles. And again, if you're having a hard time with just the cubes, you can skip the cylinders, it's optional. So back line is parallel to the front line, so you just watch that curve. And we've got another cylinder. So I'm just finishing up my composition to try to make it a little more interesting. Another option is I'm putting some circular windows on this building back here. And something a little fun about these is that you don't have to use a ruler. So you can decide for yourself if you like that or not. The circles are all optional. And after that one, I believe my composition is done now. Yep, okay. From here on out, all of these steps are optional. This is just a week where we're practicing this skill, and we're going to build on it next week and create something a little more complex, but I want you to get really comfortable with two-point perspective. So I decided to try to make mine look a little bit nicer by, you can see, adding these pen lines and adding a little color and a little shading, and I'm going to show you how to make the cubes look a bit more three-dimensional with shading with a pencil. So the key to making cubes look three-dimensional is deciding where your light is coming from, and then based on that decision, deciding which side of the cube is going to be which color, because each of them are going to be a slightly different color of gray when we're shading with a pencil. So I'm taking care to make this pretty nice and smooth by shading it with paper towel, or smoothing it with paper towel. And then you look at, like for the, I skipped through that really quickly, but for the inside part of the window, you look at which direction the wall is based on the rest of the cube to decide what color it is. And for the cylinder shape over here, to make it look three-dimensional and rounded, I put a highlight through the center with an eraser, and then I darkened the edges to make it look more rounded. And you can do the same thing with color if you are up to the challenge. I shaded the whole shape purple first, because that's my base color, and then I decided which side of the shape was going to be more shaded. And with colored pencil, I would recommend using very light pressure so you can blend the colors together easily. And then after you have a color that you're happy with, if you would like to push harder to make it more vibrant, that is acceptable at that point. But here you can see I'm blending my colors together to make something new. Your requirement, though, is to not fully finish the composition if you don't want to, but to make the 5 cubes and then add some windows. I just want you to get comfortable with two-point perspective. The way you finish it, again, is up to you. You could add a background if you want. You could do the shading like I showed you here, but I'm excited to see what you come up with. So good luck, and if you need help, please let me know.